This episode is brought to you by ProForce Athletics, the home of unique and custom sports tees serving athletes, teams, organizations, and fundraising campaigns. To learn more, visit ProForceAthletics.com.
Just don't believe that everybody should get a trophy. I do think
Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, heroes and villains. I'm your host, Deshaun Fauntleroy. I know your time is precious, so we're going to get right into today's show. In today's show, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special guest coming on from Duke Alumni. She's a Duke alum. I have Missy West coming on to the show. And before I go any further, I want to let you know Missy was a three-sport standout student athlete at Franklin Academy High School in Malone, New York in the mid-1990s, setting numerous records in basketball, softball, and soccer. In basketball, she averaged 29 points per game and was named Miss Basketball in New York as a senior. She scored 2,605 points and helped her team to the New York State Public School Athletic Association Section 10 title. Now in softball, she won 64 games and pitched an unbelievable 15 no-hitters and 2 perfect games and led her team to the New York State Championship. She was also selected Softball Player of the Year in New York and was chosen on the All-American team. She was a standout on the soccer field as well, scoring 63 goals and contributing 15 assists during her high school career. Missy played basketball at Duke University and was an integral member of the Blue Devils' 1999 NCAA Women's Division I Basketball Championship. She played basketball in Germany for 3 years, and while doing that, winning a German national championship, both as a player and later as a coach. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Missy West to the show. Missy, I know this is just part of your bio. Tell us what you're up to and tell my audience everything else that they need to know about you.
Yeah, sure. Well, currently I do a lot of motivational speaking. I just recently got involved with a nonprofit organization called the Positive Coaching Alliance, which what we're all about is creating better athletes, but also better people. We go and talk to student athletes, parents, coaches, teaching them, that it's not about winning at all costs. There's more to sport than just that. And it's teaching those life skills that are so valuable and precious that we take throughout our lifetime. So I'm really excited about that. Just recently, back on July 2nd of this past summer, I was inducted into the National High School Hall of Fame, which was an incredible honor for me, considering, yes, I've accomplished quite a bit as an athlete, but I never won any Olympic gold medals or any World Series championships, and I was being inducted with these types of athletes. And even beyond that, I was asked to give the acceptance speech out of 11 of these inductees. So me coming from a small little village in upstate New York and accomplishing some of the things that I accomplished and being on that big stage at the National High School Hall of Fame was something really, really incredible.
I saw your acceptance speech on YouTube. I'll make sure I put a link in that to the show notes page regarding our show so our audience can see that. I thought it was incredible. I really appreciate how you talked about the high school sports experience and some of the things that we get out of that, in terms of playing multiple sports, for one thing, because it teaches you resilience. It also teaches you leadership. You learn how to fail. You learn how to overcome adversity. And more importantly, you learn how to have fun.
Exactly.
Now, reading through your bio, I was impressed because we live in this day and age where everybody has to win. Everybody has to get a trophy. All you have to do is participate without having to work. What could you expound on your thoughts a little bit further?
I just don't believe that everybody should get a trophy. I do think, we talk so much in our society about talent, having talent, rather than actually encouraging effort. And I think we kind of are sending our youth and our high school athletes and even our college athletes, we're sending them the wrong message. We're sending them, you don't have to work hard. If you're just talented or you're able to be a member on the team, well, that is good enough. And, that's not how life works. And I think we should be using sport as an avenue to teach these valuable life lessons. So when these athletes, when the game is over and the shoes are put up, they know how to function in life. I just think that is something that is extremely important for us to be teaching.
I agree 100%. I really feel that when you coddle a student or when you coddle a student athlete, we're not giving them the chance to fail. We're not giving them the chance to make a mistake. So then I really feel like the learning process is impeded because now they don't have to think like they would. They miss that part of critical thinking. They miss that part in terms of reflective thinking. So, in my practice, I really challenge my athletes to think, how did you get into this situation? Think about the who, what, when, where, how, why. Just the basic things that we were taught in grade school is sometimes missed these days.
Right. And I totally agree. I think about what I learned as an athlete. I remember being back when I was in 7th grade, I was asked to play on the varsity softball team. And I started playing baseball when I was 5 years old. So I was used to playing with all the boys, throwing overhand. And I was a pretty decent player. I was picked and chosen to be on the all-star team. And I was a pitcher. And man, I love striking out the boys. I certainly got a rise out of that. But I started playing softball in 7th grade and was asked to play in the varsity softball team. And I had no idea how to, throw a softball windmill pitching, but they wanted me to be the pitcher. And so here I am, this 13-year-old little fragile girl asked to play with 17 and 18-year-old kids. And I remember going out on the mound and, just pitching to one batter after another and walking every single batter. I mean, my first 2 years, 7th and 8th grade, I don't remember winning too many games. In fact, most of the time I remember walking off the mound, really embarrassed, kind of ashamed. I didn't want to let my teammates down. I didn't want to let my coaches down. I really didn't even want to be out on the mound after a certain point. But I think the key was that I had a really great support system. See, my life could have went in a completely different direction had I not had a positive support system in an environment that allowed me to fail and overcome adversity and really get back out on the mound, allow opportunities to retry. And I had that. And because I had that at such an early age, starting in 7th grade, to be able to fail, get back out on the mound, try again, look up, see my teammates, they continue to cheer me on, have a fan base that continued to cheer me on, have a coach saying that you got this, next batter, don't worry about it, keep trying, and continue to work with me. I mean, that's what really helped me excel in all of my sports that I played, is because I had that support system to allow failure and to overcome failure and to get better as an athlete. So we need to be exposed to failure. Our kids need to be allowed to be exposed to failure and what it takes to overcome that. My mom told me she read a book, and she can't remember the name of the book, but she said the definition of success is 19 failures. I think that's so true, though. When you think about your long-term life, right? You experience probably more failures, more bad decisions than you do successes. Great successes. You kind of have these little minor mistakes that you make along the way. And then when something great happens and you finally have reached that destination, how powerful that is. But I think a lot of times in sports now, what we're teaching is a complete opposite. If you fail, you're not good enough. If you don't have talent, don't even try. And because we have this pressure of winning at all costs, it doesn't matter. Kids feel worthless. They feel like they're not good enough to continue in sport. And I worry about that because, through the Positive Coaching Alliance, we have figured out that 70% of our youth are dropping out of sports by the age of 13. Why is that happening? I blame us as adults, as parents, as coaches, as mentors. We are not giving them the tools to be able to succeed and learn the life lessons that sports can teach us.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coaches, parents, if you're listening to Coach Missy West right now, you have to remember that it's about really caring for the kid, letting them fail, letting them know that it's okay, still giving that love and attention to help them develop, being there for them emotionally, realizing that sports is not about winning, but it's about creating positive citizens and good people in our community. And with that is going to come, some challenge and hardship from time to time. We have to put our kids in a place where they can learn, they can experience some hardship, they can experience some challenges, but still be emotionally intact, still feel good about themselves. Missy, I can really appreciate what you're talking about. I listened to your Hall of Fame induction speech a couple of times, and what really impressed me, or what really helped me gravitate towards this interview was it a championship game where you were pitching on the mound and I think you walked several batters?
No, I mean, this is throughout the year. We didn't. So with softball, my first 2 years when I was in 7th and 8th grade and played varsity, we didn't win hardly any games. We didn't play in any championships. We were bottom of the league. It wasn't until I just kept working at it and practicing. And again, I had good coaching. I had a good support system. And my junior year, we actually won a state championship. I think of, if I didn't have that development, here I started as a softball pitcher and I was not a very good pitcher at all. I had no control over what I'm doing. I was, my ball barely even reached over the plate because, I had no speed to it. And, I just kept working at it. I kept working at it and kept being encouraged to continue trying. And that's what, my senior year, I became an All-American. I was a Louisville All-American. I think about, imagine if I had a coach and a support system that discouraged that when I was in 7th grade. We wouldn't have had accomplished all the things that we did. We wouldn't have won a state title. I wouldn't even have been a pitcher. I don't even know if I would have even stayed involved in sports. So I think we really cannot forget that we need to create these environments for our athletes to develop. It takes time for them to develop. We're starting kids to play sports at 3, 4, 5 years of age and expecting them to know the game to win. And that's not the point here. They need to have fun. They need to be encouraged. They need to be taught. They need to learn and give time for their bodies, their minds, to develop and really find out what their passion is, not what the coach's passion, not what the parents' passion is. The kids need to find out what their passion is and then follow it,
Yes, I agree 100%. I was really impressed. You were sharing one of your experiences when you were on the mound and you walked several batters and, you were looking around. You could see your mom. I think you could see your dad. You expressed that you could see your brothers in the background, but it was either your coach or your mom. Everybody, even though you were struggling, it was somebody out there that was saying, Missy, you got this. Missy, you got this. And I think that is the support we need. I've been that person on the mound at 15, 16 years old, walking everybody, and it feels like it's never going to end. You're never going to get off the mound. But like now you can look back on it and say, you know what, that was an incredible experience. I've been able to move on and I've learned some things from it.
Exactly.
And that leads me to one of the major points in our discussion is what were your top 3? What are your top 3 lessons that you've learned through sports?
Sure. And a lot of these things I've already touched on, but I think number 1 for me is what I've already mentioned, how to overcome failure, how to be resilient, right? How to get back up and keep moving forward after a mistake or feeling embarrassed and maybe not having that confidence in yourself, but still digging deep enough to go out there and try again. I think sports is a great environment for us to learn resiliency. The second thing is, how to play and work with integrity. I was so fortunate. I grew up with a really good family, very loving family. Both my mom and dad were educators. And my dad was kind of my coach, and he actually was a coach. He was a football coach for our high school. And he's the one that really kind of taught me how to be competitive. But my mom taught me that it's important to be a good person along the way. It's important to make sure that the team comes first over you. And for me, it was really hard because, I didn't like the limelight because of my athleticism and how I was able to play. A lot of times I was the headlines of the papers. I was the one being interviewed by the news. I was kind of the person in the limelight, even though I didn't want it. And every time that happened, I just remember giving credit always to my teammates, because there's no way, even though people wanted to talk to me, there's no way that I could be doing the things that I was doing had I not had an incredible team around me to support me, to encourage me, to, give me the ball when I was open. All of those things was because of others. And yes, I worked hard. I certainly am proud of the effort that I put into my sports, but it was really because, of them. And I always think of no one accomplishes anything worth anything alone, right?
That's right.
It's about others that help us, but it's in those moments when you're challenged, in those moments where you lose, in those moments where, maybe you have an opponent that is disrespectful to you. It's rising to the occasion in those moments, right? And being the better person in those situations. It's when you're knocked down, or one of your teammates is knocked down, or an opponent is knocked down, going and picking them back up, and continuing to encourage them. It's after a game when you're going to slap a high five to your opponents. It's looking them in the eye and actually mean good game, not just saying it or, giving them a backhand, or some of us don't even give a high five at all. Right? It's rising to the occasion and playing with integrity, playing for the right reasons, not to lie, cheat, or steal, but win the right way. I think for me, even with that, by playing like that, when I became a college coach, that was a huge value of mine. I wanted to make sure that I was teaching and developing players that played with integrity. I wasn't a win-at-all-cost coach. In fact, if I had to sacrifice a win to teach a life lesson, I was going to do that. I wanted to do things the right way. So my second thing, like I said, was to play and work with integrity. We all have these choices that we can make. Are we making the right choice that is going to help boost our careers forward? Or are we making poor decisions, maybe lashing out at our opponents or lashing out at our coach? How are we behaving and acting out in front of people? And is that going to be hurting our career? So that was my second. And my third, as I already kind of mentioned, is how to work together as a team. Team to me is everything. Team follows you for the rest of your life. I don't care if you're starting up your own business or, you work for a big corporate America. You're going to be working in teams. And so you got to know how to communicate with each other. You got to know how to work together. You need to know how to really be vulnerable and open to learning from others that can help you with your weaknesses and build your strengths. And there's no better way to learn that than through sport and being a part of a team. So those are really my top three. I think, other things, there's a million things, right, that sports can teach us, like accountability and time management and discipline and perseverance, communication, hard work. And I also love, sacrifice. It certainly teaches you how to sacrifice. If you want to become a really good athlete, you're going to have to make those sacrifices to do that.
I agree. I like how you got those combinations of things from your parents and coaches, like just the football resilience from your dad.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get pushed around. You got to be able to get back up and come back the next day. I like the whole integrity part that you talked about from your mom. I really think that's incredible because I've been around coaches. I've been that coach myself, where sometimes you want to win, you want to compete, but at a certain point, you have to be able to discipline athletes. You have to be able to, sit somebody down on the bench, have them go home for the day, and take some lumps as a coach, take some losses versus, always being worried about winning. I think you're speaking on something incredible there, because I feel like us as, a collective coaching community, sometimes we get caught up in the wins and losses where we should be more about developing young men and women. And with that, sometimes we have to get out of our own ego and lose. It might be a whole losing season to illustrate that we're going to run this team a certain way.
Absolutely.
Outside of that, you learn to work together. That is the beauty. That is the beauty of playing sports, because that trickles on into the academic world. It trickles on into the corporate world, whether you're going to work for a big Fortune 500 corporation or venture off and begin a startup. You have to have a team, and sports shows you that.
Absolutely.
You talked about making sacrifices. You have students and they get so distracted by social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and all the new things that are new apps that I'm not even thinking of right now or not even aware of. How do you talk to the young student athlete to make those sacrifices to, okay, let's eliminate our distractions? What do you say to that person?
Well, I think it's pretty simple, actually. It's called commitment. We need to simply commit ourselves to getting better every single day. And we do spend, our players, our athletes spend numerous hours on social media. It's habit for them. It's automatic. When I go and speak in these schools now, and they all come in with their cell phones, checking their social media. I think if you really want to be a great athlete, how much time you commit to your social media, you should take all of that time and commit it to whatever your passion is. And if that is sports and you want to become a better athlete, you got to be committed to that. And what does that mean? That means you need to make priorities. Becoming the best athlete that you can be, it means that you need to make it a priority for you. It needs to move up on that list of putting in that extra time, making sure, you're getting up early, going into the gym early, leaving late, putting in that extra work, and then what do we sacrifice? Not just how do we sacrifice, what do we sacrifice? Well, I think of all the moments that we do spend on social media, all the moments where we, hang out Friday night with our friends. I think all of that is definitely important, but you got to have balance. And again, if you set your priorities, you put it on a list, you maybe put it on a little notepad and you stick it next to your bed. So when you roll out, you see what your priorities are and you stay committed to that. So that Friday night when your friends are all hanging out, maybe you're going to the gym and getting up an extra 100 shots. I do think you need to sacrifice weekends. I think you need to sacrifice some of your summers. Those that have become the best athletes have been committed in those moments, really when no one else is looking, right? We've heard that quote before. But it's, for me, I was starting in 7th grade. I actually lived in Albany, which is a 3.5-hour drive from Malone, the little village that I grew up in. I lived in Albany and stayed there all summer. And I played in the Empire State Games, and I played with AAU teams, and I played with players that were actually better than me. And I gave up my summers to become a better basketball player. Why? Because it was my passion. It wasn't my parents' passion. It was my passion. I wanted to do it. I wanted to commit to it. I had to sacrifice, and I decided to sacrifice a lot of my summers. I also sacrificed a lot of my weekends, playing in AAU and traveling back and forth and up and down the East Coast, making sure that I was a part of big tournaments. So it's, I think we always talk that we want to be great. We say we want to be great, but we don't actually put in the actions to do that. And I think we need to physically write down what our priorities are. And then we need to set goals for ourselves too. We need to physically pick up a pen or a pencil and a pad of paper and write down what our goals are. And not just long-term goals. What are our monthly goals? And then what are our goals on a daily basis? How can we achieve that end of the year goal that we might have, or the end of the season goal that we might have for ourselves? We need to set standards for ourselves as players. But again, it really ultimately starts with the how you make the commitment to do it. Physically put it on a sheet of paper, put it on your mirror where you can see it every single day to remind you, man, I want to be a really great player. I want to become my best. And if I do that, I have to be different, because the majority doesn't do those things, right? The majority do not do the little things of sacrificing these moments in time to commit to whatever their passion is. So it's really kind of doing your own thing, not being afraid to be a little bit different, and kind of being be a leader, be a role model for the younger ones that actually want to be great athletes as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Missy West. She's discussing 3 lessons she learned in sports, which is resilience, integrity, and how to work as a team. She is also discussing how and what to sacrifice to be your best. Before we close out, Missy, I want to discuss how we can be a better sports parent, coach, or role model for our young athletes. And I think this is key. This is going to put the icing on the cake for this conversation.
How can we be better sports parents, coaches, and role models for our athletes and for our youth kids? I'm going to say this. Typically, the parent is the most influential and biggest role model in our children's lives. Second to that, I would say it's coaches that have the biggest impact on our athletes' lives. So what are we doing? How can we become good role models for our athletes? I think, one, we need to be responsible and held accountable for our own actions and how we behave in games. How do we watch games? How do we behave in games? How do we treat the coaches? How do we treat our child's teammates? I think too often now we see a lot of parents that speak about their dislike of a coach, their dislike of other teammates. They point fingers a lot, and they do this in front of their own child who's a part of that team. What they don't realize is they're actually discouraging their kid to go back and play. They're giving their child mixed messages. They're going to practice. They might be enjoying it and loving it, but the parent thinks something different. So I think we need to be really careful of the language that we're using around our kids, around our athletes. I also think, we need to make sure that we are respecting people. If we want our child to be respectful, if we want our athletes to be respectful, we need to be respectful. And that means when we're watching a game, how we behave. Do we lash out at a coach out loud during games? Do we lash out at an official? Do we lash out at teammates? How do we behave? Do we get in fights with other parents? I mean, we see this all the time now. It's completely gotten out of control. But then we get upset if our child goes and lashes out. But we are doing the same thing. That's what we're teaching our kids. Same thing as a coach. How does a coach coach? Are we lashing out at other coaches? Are we yelling at our teammates? What are we doing? And then I just think as parents and as adults, we need to hold ourselves more accountable for our own actions. I also think we need to make sure that, and I mentioned this before, but we need to make sure we're giving our children a safe environment to play in, right? We need to make sure that we give them this opportunity to develop. This means a safe place for mistakes and growth. Parents need to support. They need to be the big support system for our kids, and they need to allow the coaches to coach. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned, and this even happened for me, you ask any college kid what was one of their biggest nightmares from high school sports, and they talk about their car ride home after games. This is the truth, and this is something, even when I grew up, my father was such a competitor, very involved in athletics. He was his own coach, but I remember getting in the car, and I could have scored 35 points that game, had 20 rebounds, whatever it was. And there were moments where that didn't seem good enough. He always picked, something that I might have missed, and maybe I had missed a defensive stop, whatever that may be. His intentions were good. His intentions were to make me a better player. But the issue is, and what parents don't realize is, most of the time the athletes already know. They know the mistakes that they made. Either they know it themselves, their teammates have pointed it out, or the coach has pointed it out. Then they have to go and get in the car with their parents and hear it again. And what they should be hearing from their parents is, did you have fun? Did you have a good time? What did you learn in tonight's competition? And then do you want to talk about it? If it was a bad game, maybe it was a bad loss, maybe your kid took that last shot and missed it, whatever it may be, they're already feeling bad. Do you want to talk about it? If they say no, don't go and keep on talking about it or try to bring it up. They need time. The kids want to listen to parents. They look up to their parents. But I think the timing that we have is sometimes really off. I guarantee and bet you, if you were to wake up the next day and say, let the kid talk when they're ready to talk, and then when you go to speak, it's going to be much more powerful. They're actually going to remember what you said, not try to put their headphones on and kind of, pretend like you're not even talking. I think the timing
Right.
of that is just so important. So, giving them a safe environment. They need. Sports is not easy. We're unfortunately in a win at all cost society. So they need our support as parents. They need to let the coaches coach, and we just need to be there to hug them, to love them. And also, I think the last thing that I really want to talk about is we need to encourage effort and not talent. And I can't tell you how many times I'm out, watching a game and you hear, "You're a great player. You're so talented." And it's because they did something well out on the field. But what we really should be acknowledging them for is because of their effort, because of how hard they worked. That's why they've been successful. And if we teach them that growth mindset about effort, then they're going to be continuing to want to work hard, to put in that effort, to be committed to doing the little extra things to making them better. So we already give them that trophy. We already put them on that pedestal. We already tell them that they're great. And the problem is that when we do that as coaches and as parents, they think they're great because it's our fault as adults. We've put them there. We've made them think this. And then what happens, those that have been supported by a growth mindset, those that have been taught that when you work hard, when you put in that effort, you will eventually succeed. Those type of kids end up passing those kids that were taught that they were great because they were talented. And so I think we really need to be careful with our communication. I think anytime a player does something good, we need to contribute that to their effort, right? So they know that their hard work will pay off. It's not just going to be handed to them. So I think those three things are something really important for parents and coaches and, just adults, the communities that are supporting these programs, our own actions, what we do, the environment that we put our athletes in, and then, encouraging this effort over talent is really, really critical to make sure that they're able to develop and learn these life skills and life lessons that they can take with them for the rest of their lives.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first with Coach Missy West of the Positive Coaching Alliance. Missy, this has been an incredible interview. Where can my audience find you or learn more about you?
Sure. So it's actually kind of interesting because since I've been inducted into the National High School Hall of Fame, and you mentioned my speech quite a few times, there's a lot of people that actually have seen that speech, and since that moment, everything has kind of blown up, and I've had incredible opportunities come flying at me to go and speak all over the country. And so I actually do not have a website as of right this second. It is going to come. It is happening, I promise. But this has really kind of been positively overwhelming, if I can say that. So I've been speaking so much that I actually haven't had time to sit down and do this website yet. But I want to give you my email address. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime. It's westm2520@gmail.com. And again, that's westm2520@gmail.com. You also can follow me on Twitter, and that's @MissyWest25. I have Instagram too, and Instagram is MISWEST25. I also do have a blog, but once I get that up and running, I can share that with you. If you want to send me an email, I can send you the link for that. I only have a few articles written so far, so that's something that's up and coming as well. But I do a lot of speaking in high schools. I do a lot of speaking to administrators, principals, athletic directors. I also speak to coaches. So anything that we're interested in. I do a lot of I'm going to a leadership summit here in Louisiana in a couple weeks. And then I am also doing a student athlete leadership seminar in Florida in August. So I'm speaking at Duke actually on Thursday, which I'm pretty excited about. So there's a lot of great things happening.